How's it going, everybody? Just getting used to some new equipment at my friend's house. We got a good show on this morning. Bradley Wescott. He comes highly recommended, and we're going to get him up here right now. If these shows resonate with you, please share. We would appreciate it.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Excellent.
It's a pleasure to meet you. How's it going?
Yeah, good to meet you, Todd.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we connected, but I noticed who some of your friends were when I went to your page, and well, I won't think any worse of you. I think it was Steve Moulin and some of those Brits over there. Where are you located at?
I'm from Brighton.
Oh yeah, you're in Brighton. So you're near Shanine and Steve.
Yeah, I know Shanine. Yeah, friends of mine.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. I got a little. I don't usually read the bios, but I've got yours pulled up because we don't know you.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Some people do. But this is Bradley's bio. He's a transformational speaker. He's an emotional integration coach. That sounds interesting. Creative visionary whose primary focus is to bring issues surrounding male vulnerability into the mainstream. So this is going to be a good conversation. He's embarked on his own healing journey from a lifelong struggle with emotional disconnect, dysfunctional relating, and self-sabotage. That sounds like all of us. A true light worker. Bradley is now driven to empower men in using their adversities as a path to their own self-discovery. The belief that our greatest potential often lies within our most vulnerable expression is the essence of Bradley's new business called Giant Feats, F-E-A-T-S, a company that seeks to innovate the conversation around male vulnerability and deliver it in a language that the men of today can understand. So big props to you for that. This is going to be a good conversation because you're talking to a male, a masculine who has been deeply stripped of his, of his old identities, which you know, I don't know how much more vulnerable you can get than that. But yeah, that sounds really cool. When did you wake up? Did you have a wake up experience or?
Yeah, I've had I guess I've had a few at different levels, you know. I mean, my parents have always been sort of quite, I guess, quite conscious in a way, but I really wasn't interested in that kind of stuff, you know. When I grew up, I was into sports and I remember speaking to a girl I was seeing. I was about 19, and she was talking about energy, and I was like, "What the f are you talking about?" I really.
You can't be a 19-year-old boy and be talking to a girl about energy.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I guess I wasn't ready to hear it. I got into practicing yoga, and I was really interested in that for a while. But I actually had my first awakening through psychedelic drugs, because I had a lot of issues. I took a lot of drugs throughout the early part of my life, from my early teens, really, all the way through my 20s. But in my early 20s, I took a large dose of LSD, and that really sort of sparked my mind to the nature of reality. And I kind of woke up, and from then I became really, really fascinated in the conversation around why we're here and what we're here to do. And but it kind of wasn't enough. I kind of fell back. I wasn't awake enough to start actually looking at myself and how I became the person I became, and the programs that I was playing out. And I wasn't ready to address my behavior, and my real awakening came as a result of some shit that I created in my life, and knowing that I had to really look at that. And that's my biggest awakening happened 4 years ago, when I really had to face myself and take myself on, and strip myself, as you said, of who I thought I was, and reinvent myself.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty deep. And I think this whole thing with the masculine, the divine, the true masculine rising,
Yeah.
whatever, and the stripping of the old, I think it's starting to come out, like with people like you, and how deep it goes. Like, losing your manhood, losing your sexual performance. And I don't mean performance as in, necessarily not having sex. I just mean the old performance has to go, the old expectations. And how can I be a man when I can't be a warrior in the bedroom? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a good topic. That's a massive topic to go into, actually, and it's something that I'm exploring all the time. The way that we perceive as a man to have sex, and
Mhm.
how the nature. Actually, do you know, having a child recently, me and my partner Abby, we were talking about this the other day, and that our understanding of sex and intimacy, and when it comes from, and how much it changes having a child, and seeing that the creation of that act, for one, and also, where we learn about sensuality and sexuality as a baby, suckling on our mother's breast, and about how it's a really beautiful thing, that over time the kind of sex for a lot of us becomes something very quite shadowy and dark, and we're sort of
Distorted,
we call it, me and Abby
kinky,
call it, like, fucking the wound,
right? It's distorted, kinky, freaky,
Yeah,
spooky,
yeah.
painful, torturous. I mean,
I guess it's life, really. It's a fair reflection of life, and the way that we connect, and the way that we are intimate, sort of reflects probably how we show up sexually as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because my wife and I, we've talked about the sacred sexuality thing.
Yeah.
And she downloaded this stuff for years. And when we got together and we started to, go into intimacy from this new place, which we were basically, I don't want to say forced, but we both chose to be celibate before we met. So, there's no coincidences. But anytime we would try to go into the old groove, something would stop us, right? Something would happen. But what I'm getting at is that as we start to step back into it, and I think we're like in nursery school or elementary school at this point, pretty fantastic experiences. But I can see where that old masculine power is coming back. A part of us that was always there, we might have had flashes of it, but I really had to go, and I don't know, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but I really had to go full bore with the universe and say, hey, if I never get an erection again, if I never have physical intercourse with my wife again, it's okay. I accept it. And like everything else that we have to accept. But I think in particular with the masculine, this is a unique proposition. I'm not saying the feminine is not going through it in their own way, but it's a very weird kind of deal. When you take your weapon away, you take your manhood away, you take everything away, and be willing to not just experience life as we have, but still continue to grow and expand and strive to raise your consciousness and contribute to the, the expansion of the collective consciousness. I mean, it's a hell of a mind fuck, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. That's a really, yeah. There's a lot to it, and I think, yeah, I like the idea of surrendering all that. It sounds like you've done a fair bit of work on it. It's kind of an area that I'm moving into myself with sex.
Yeah. I bet you didn't know you were going to talk about this today.
No, this is surprising, but
one thing I have noticed, because I look at these couples now, and I'd love to hear about your story. I just saw a comment that Shanine made about Abby and Bradley's stories is mind blowing. But I look at these couples and I'm like, and I've had a couple, guys, but I'd say they're more like my age. What's going on? I said, look, dude, just like totally shut down, shut down and take it off the table for a while. And there's resistance, and I had resistance. I had major resistance. But I don't know how they could actually find this space, but everybody's got their own trip, every individual, every couple. But what I have noticed, and I've often wondered about, is these younger couples like you.
Yeah.
It's in theory, and probably in fact, I would be more conditioned or more tainted because of, the linear time span difference, probably 20 years with you, 25 years. So you may not have as much crap. I don't know how that works. I don't know if same type of, that same type of, physical intimacy that, that you might have if you're 20 years older.
I think I've had my fair share of crap. And sexually, I think it's something that me and Abby are really just starting to explore, because we both come from, I think, quite shadowy backgrounds in our sort of sexual history. And I guess it's an area that we're just starting to explore. It's not been, I mean, we met and then we had a baby within a year, and for a lot of that, we really had to readdress who we were sexually, because when that sort of soul came into Abby, she actually first, and I take her lead because, yeah, I always like, she's always seems to be right, so I always take her lead anyway. But she started to notice the sort of lack of presence in our intimacy, when we're having sex, and that she wasn't prepared then with that new baby inside her to allow that energy to move through her.
Wow.
And that was wow. For me to hear that was like really difficult. It really hurt, actually. It was like gut-wrenchingly painful, because I think I'd always, being that sexual man and being that, like you said, the warrior in the bedroom was a real part of how I express myself as a man with a woman.
Yeah. And
almost, assertive dominance. Like I had to be this on top, like, physical being.
Controlling.
Controlling. And it really, it actually really echoes and how I show up with women, is that there's a part of me which doesn't feel safe with a powerful woman. And Abby's a powerful woman. And I think as soon as we got together, we kind of fell back into the old program where I started to try and assert myself and dominate. And anytime I felt her being powerful, I had to suppress that, because it's something I couldn't be with. And I guess it's because I couldn't be with my own true essence of power. And so, like, if I suppressed that myself, I suppressed that with her. And all of a sudden she got like really ill. And like I could see myself falling back into that sort of codependency where I needed her to need me. Yeah. And I guess that was coming out, and we had to go through that, like, obviously.
No, this is brilliant. Which part of that methodology of getting her to need me was through the warrior sexual performance in the bedroom that it was taken off the table. I want to go back to what you said, because this is huge what you said. And it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter how I got there. I think it only makes sense everyone's going to have to go through it, because oneness is oneness, and
Yeah.
lack of presence is not oneness. But I love what you said about once the baby entered, the other soul was in her body, in her universe,
Yeah.
that she could not have you in intimacy if you weren't present.
Yeah.
She was not going to allow that energy into her body. So
Yeah.
maybe the baby was giving her that intelligence, or however it works. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I think that's a great, a great short description. And, and because we're men, and you're right, and I want to talk about that. I don't really want to get into you and Abby's story because you guys are coming on soon. I know my wife's already in contact with her.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm doing that telepathically. I already know how to work. But I do want to talk. Yeah, I do want to talk about some of the dynamics of it, though.
Okay.
But because I've struggled to, I've not talked to my wife a bunch about it. I've told her I want to do something to help the masculine. I had no idea what I was talking about. Be careful what you ask for, right?
Yeah.
And but it's like, okay, if you walk into let's just say that type of episode, and it's like, okay, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. I'm not saying they're saying that. I'm saying the universal energy is saying that. And then you're like, okay, well, what can I do? And it's like, well, nothing you did. Standing there holding your proverbial in your hand going, what do I do? First thing is get rid of that thing,
Yeah.
Take it out of the equation. It's such a mind-blowing trip for men, and I'm glad to be talking to you about it. Now you made the comment too, which is very, very common. I don't know if I've ever seen a relationship since I've been awake the last 8 years that the woman wasn't bringing in the information and wasn't leading the way. Now, I've seen situations where the man seemed to be doing it, but every time I drill down, and it's just my opinion, I'm not throwing rocks at anybody, but every time I drill down into it, he was really controlling the situation. It was a very deeply embedded, subtle pattern. So how did you come into that? I know you've gone through a lot of personal transformation, but what was the impact of when you met her, when she walked into your life? How did that go for you? Was there a struggle?
Massive struggle.
Yeah.
Massive struggle. Like it triggered all of my worst insecurities around not being good enough. And there's a programming running down through my mum's side, which is that men can't manage, and they can't manage life, and there's this massive not good enough.
Yes.
Yeah, down my mum's side, and it's kind of drilled into me, and so Abby was kind of, when I met her, was bringing up all this I didn't see it at the time. It took me a while to go through it, but all of this like deep lack of self-worth. And so anytime that she was telling me, she was getting these downloads, and then she was relaying this information, and then I was taking it like, because I hadn't thought of it, that I wasn't being good. I wasn't being good enough.
Were you?
Yeah. So I really resist that.
Yeah. I totally get that shit.
I would be like,
were you?
Couldn't hear it,
Yeah. Well, okay. So when you got hit with the information, and this is good for couples because there's going to be more and more and more couples. So when you got hit with the information, from this divine goddess who stepped into your life and turns you upside down, you're already coming from a place of inadequacy. My wife got some intel 2-3 years ago, and it was, he always blamed himself. And now this is old paradigm, but he always blamed himself, and she blamed him too. So like he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're coming from that, which you so perfectly described.
Yeah.
And did you find yourself taking it personal?
Massively.
And projecting? How did you balance that out?
Well, I mean, I think I make everything about me, the nature of my ego is that, look, in my reality, everything that someone did, I would compare that to me and make it mean something about me. And so, especially with women, and especially with this powerful lady in my life, and her like really giving me this really beautiful downloaded transmission to me, and me just not being able to be with it because it made me feel so inadequate. And there was a real turning point in our relationship where it got to that point where it was like make or break. Like and she had to go away, and for a couple of weeks she went away. Like the universe lined up perfectly. She went away to India, and I had 2 weeks by myself, and I did a lot of work, and I dug up a lot of stuff stored in my body and my emotions around my relationship with my mother. But deeper still, and it felt ancestral, was like my relationship to women.
Yeah.
And actually what I uncovered scared me. It scared the hell out of me, man. It was like,
You can say fuck.
it was like deep. It scared the fuck out of me. It was like real deep hatred of women, deep, almost like violence, like murder, rape,
rage,
you know, towards women. And I didn't realize this was in me, and I had to go, and I was getting some coaching at the time as well. And there was one day where I just said to Abby, look, I need us not to speak for 2 days. And I looked at this post, and it was like a really powerful post of her, and it really triggered me. Like I felt this thing in my throat, and it was like this energy around my throat. And I was going to this to support a friend who was running he was running an open day for his healing center, and there was a meditation in it, and I just felt this energy growing around my throat all throughout the whole sort of process. And then when we went into the meditation, I had the biggest energy release. Like I felt like I literally shifted universes or like timelines in that moment. It was like the release, it was almost too much for me to bear.
Yeah.
And when I came round from it, I went home the next day, and it was kind of like everything had shifted slightly, and I wasn't being affected in the same way by what was showing up. I wasn't getting triggered in the same way by what was showing up.
Was there do you recall, hey, 2 things. Do you recall, was there something in particular that you felt like was the major impetus of that shift? And did you use a certain process to clear anything that came, to your attention?
Yeah. At the time, I was getting some coaching from a beautiful soul, Mary Catherine, and she was using a few things, but she's an I Love You Me coach, which is there's a beautiful lady called Tara Love Perry who lives in Brighton as well, who's got this amazing self-love. I guess it's kind of coaching. It's kind of emotional release work, but working on the inner child and bringing love to all those parts of ourselves that we kind of push away or don't express or have forgotten about, and allowing them to have a voice, and allowing myself to feel my feelings. I mean, I never used to experience feelings, and this was a while after I got into this process, and I'd done a good few sessions with Mary at this point, and then it was just ready to shift.
Yeah, that's a good, those the ones I've had, which have, well, they've not always been alone. She's been around, or with me, sometimes, but I'd say 70% of the time they've been alone, and there's some painful moments. But it started to get, I'd say in July. July was a big month for the masculine in me, which I felt like you were talking about. You knew you were doing some collective as well. But since then, every time the shit hits the fan, which hasn't been a lot, I got to say, I've been very fortunate. But I know there's a part of me that knows as soon as you can get through this, clear this, process, accept this, whatever the case is, love this, you're going to have a huge shift because the reciprocation, the energetic reciprocation of the universe, the atmosphere now is not like what it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You're getting immediate impact, immediate manifestation, basically. And basically, if you do the work, you're going to shift, and you're going to shift in a big way.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little easier for me now when it does pop up,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's been my experience too. I'd say, I've been, when I started really working on myself 4 years ago, it took me 3 years to get to this point in the last year where I've had the biggest accelerated growth, I'd say, since meeting Abby, since really going deep, since going into my emotional body, which I hadn't really learned how to access until.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed. Did you?
Yeah, no, not at all. But
What year,
that's the gold, man. That's where that's, you know, energetically, once you start moving into those emotions, going into that, finding where that started,
yeah.
and releasing it and allowing it to be there, it's just like your whole universe starts to realign.
What year did y'all meet?
Me and Abby.
Yeah.
Me and Abby met in a long time ago. I think we met in 2012 on a one night. Night. I think I was off my head on a load of, I was on coke, I think, and she seemed pretty crazy. That's what I thought to myself. She was dating my drummer, and I was playing a gig, and she came and she broke her ribs, and I didn't see her again, but I heard about a story, and we met again in September last year at a self-love immersion weekend.
Oh, so you guys came together September 2018.
Yeah, as a sort of, as a unit.
Very cool. Yeah.
You know,
Morgan and I met in September, or physically, you know, I mean, or whatever.
Yeah.
September 2015.
Oh, nice.
September's a good month.
September definitely is a good month. It's a 9-month, so it's yeah.
Cool. So now you're big on what people call shadow work. You're big on
yeah.
I saw a great quote from Carl Jung the other day, and he said, "You cannot find yourself until you become the beast." And I was like, I don't know if a lot of people will get that, but I shared it. I'm like, you know what? I get that.
I love that.
I want to tell you something that happened. I want to get into what you do, you know, and you know what your objective is.
Yeah.
With working with men, your motivation, your inspiration, and all. But I'm telling you this because I'm wondering if anything like this has happened to you, especially recently. So.
Okay.
And there's no right or wrong answer. So anyway, it was about 4 nights ago, and I woke up. And we'd been through a lot of stuff. Like we'd been on the road for like 5 days and driven like 2,000 miles. And I came in and we were already having like activations, and I was going through stuff. We passed through Sedona, which will always bring that stuff out. So in the middle of the night, I started having like all this pain, you know, all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I knew something was happening. Of course, she's like, okay, what's going on? Anyway, long story short, you know, she helped me through it, and I pulled up that energy in front of me, and it was like this ET looking entity that was very dark. And I firmly believe, and have for quite some time, and not just say it, everything is me. I don't believe in demons. They're me, you know, it's something coming to me. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, I know you. And I know you know me, and this isn't, you know, we met many times, and but I was actually at the point where I was wondering if it was separate from me, which and I'm in the middle of the night, and I'm half asleep, and so what happened was this like, you know, like if a snake coiled around a pole.
Yeah.
So that formation, it wasn't a snake, was coiled around something, and there was this sword. And I knew that sword, and I pulled it out, and I said to myself, okay, I know how to kill you. There's a certain way you kill this thing. It's got like the same type of swirling motion. Or do I take it into my heart as I have everything else since about 2016?
Yeah.
And I was, I guess, smart enough to say, I don't know the answer to that. And I went to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and she says, tell me what you see. What is it? And I said, well, it's the opposite of everything of me as a man. Those words, as a man, I said, it's the opposite of my heart, my love, my compassion, and all that stuff. And as I was saying it, I saw her kind of light up, which was like a clue, right? And I went, oh, that's me, right? And in that moment, it all went away. But it was huge. It was an absolute, it was huge. I was sick for 3 days, and I don't get sick. I mean, I was sick. I felt like electricity's run through my body. Do you think that there's at least a greater availability of, an availability that will allow the masculines to really face themselves and push through this stuff now? And has anything like that happened to you recently?
Is there a greater ability for men to face themselves now?
Well, I'm just saying, do you think there's energy available? It's or code available where men can really push through this stuff you talked about before you met her? And I joked about it, how we weren't even conscious of these emotions. We were certainly, if you're not conscious of the emotions, you're not conscious of the patterns and the behaviors and all that. But have you made some quantum leaps recently?
But this is my thinking. What you've just said there's brought something up. We're experiencing, the rise of the feminine, right? Yeah. And the falling away of the patriarchy. And I think in men, as well as we suppressed the feminine in women, we suppressed the masculine. We've suppressed the feminine in men. And I think as that rises, as more women come into power, as we see that rise in society, it's, whatever is going on outside is also a reflection of what's going on within. I think the more we allow the feminine, the more men are going to be able to experience their emotions. And for me, that is going into the emotional body is the best, is the place where I've experienced the greatest transformation. And I don't know everything, and that's my experience. And there may be other levels deeper that you can go. I mean, I guess it's still fairly early for me, but I guess as that rises, that feminine, and we're able to tap into our emotions, and we're able to, learn to receive on a deeper level, it opens us up for greater transformation. As I see it.
How do you find those emotions? How do you stay on top of those emotions? How do you maintain them? How do you transform them or utilize them?
Well, I kind of open myself up just by learning how to be in my body, because I think with a lot of men, especially as men tend to be a lot more, I guess you think of air as a masculine element, and we tend to be a lot more up in our head, in the intellectual sort of mind and the rational thought, and that's separate from the body. In my experience, the emotions tend to live in the body, in the belly especially.
Yes.
And so I'd actually developed an autoimmune disease, and I'd been doing all this stuff to try and find healing outside of myself. And how I learned to heal it was by going into my body and to learn how to be in my belly, learning how to be in those different energy centers in my body and really experience it, breathe into it, be there. And over time, practicing this, I started to become aware of the different energy points and what was living there. And I'd start to feel different sensations, energies, tensions in my throat, my heart, my solar plexus, my belly, my root. And by feeling them and going into them and finding it and really discovering what emotion was living there and where in particular, how old was I when I first felt that? What is that? What experience did my child, my little me, my inner child have?
Now,
who was he? Sorry.
Now, were you going through some type of instruction process or modality, or were you?
Yeah, I mean,
were you getting this information intuitively, or a little bit of both?
Well, I stumbled. Well, I mean, the universe gave it to me. It's a really amazing story, which I guess we can talk about when Abby's around, but it's all tied into that story.
Yeah, let's do you and Abby together.
We'll do okay, cool. It's such a good story. I'll say it then. But essentially, I asked the universe for it, and it came to me through someone that I met, and then I started going into this.
Was that her?
No, it was a woman called Tara Love Perry, who I mentioned before, and I met Abby at her event that I went to.
Oh, okay.
It's such a cool story.
So you got two birds with one stone.
Yeah, but it's all the same. It's not separate. As soon as I was willing to open up and love myself, this beautiful reflection of that love I was willing to give myself emerged into my life. That's how I see it.
Well, your programmed commands and declarations that you made were met. once you've cleared and aligned. Yeah. So
Exactly.
now you go into your body,
Yeah.
which is very different. We were just talking about that this morning. You go into your body versus going out there.
Yeah.
You start to sit with, let's say, your gut first,
Yeah.
and you start to get communications from your body, or whatever you want to call it, the you, me, we, and it, and
Yeah.
start to understand what you're holding. Now,
Yeah.
when you go through this, how do you transform it or release it or remove the illusion or whatever, however you want to describe it? How do you do that?
For me, well, I mean, for me, I guess there's everyone's probably got a different method, but the breath, really using the breath, because that's our connection to source, as I see it. That's the spirit coming right in to meet the physical body, the mother, like in us, Mother Earth, or whatever, however you want to look at it. The masculine coming in to meet the feminine in the body, and sitting with that emotion, breathing into it, allowing it to be there, allowing it to come up exactly as it needs to. And the process that I actually went into was to relate that to an inner child, and to see that child there, and to speak to it, and to allow whatever was living there to express whatever needed to be seen or felt or heard or understood, to be given that kind of space to, breathing into it. And by allowing whatever wants to happen, whatever wants to be there,
Yeah.
that the whole energy just somehow disperses and releases.
Isn't that crazy?
And integrates.
Isn't that crazy? You know what? I think that's one of the most, well, I think what happened was I started to, at some point last year, I was like, okay, if you're angry, allow the anger,
Yeah.
know. And I remember because Morgan, we'd been apart, and she came back, and we weren't together, maybe 3 weeks, and I had a fit or something. somebody triggered me or something.
Yeah.
And I said, and I remember this because I knew at that point that I'd made progress in, on my own. And I said to her, I'm pissed. I'm angry. She was like, "What, do you want to clear that?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "No, I don't want to clear that. I'm going to go sit in the bedroom on the bed and sit there and feel it." And it was phenomenal because it would just dissipate. And I just did it like 3 or 4 days ago, I remember. And now I'm able to do it with emotions. And I think it's more than emotions now. It's like situations or people.
Yeah.
And it's not like words, like, it's like, so I just bring the in, and I just sit with it, and it really, really works, man. It really does.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
One of the things that concerns me, and it doesn't concern me because I don't, I know everything is perfect, and I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. Me too.
When Soulogy was created in 2012, there was about 80-20, or high 70s, 78% women, something like that, in the demographics of Soulogy, and it's gone down to like 65-35. Now this is
Okay.
this is Facebook oriented, so it's a little bit different. Facebook is more of a fast moving from here to there to here to there. And the reason I say that is because we started loading up YouTube in January.
Yeah.
I was looking at yesterday, and we had something like 250,000 hours since we started in 2012, but 170 were all this in 2019.
Yeah. Wow.
And so when I started looking at the metrics, it's 95% women, or 5% men.
Wow.
And that meant a lot to me, because I thought, you know what, when you go on YouTube, you've got to watch a video. You've got to like sit there and watch it. And you're not popping in and popping out. It's not as probable. So we still got work to do, and that's what I'm getting at. So how did you come about wanting to do what you're doing to assist and facilitate men, and how do you do it?
Okay. Well, there's a calling, and I didn't realize where it had come from. And when it sort of came up around men, I was pretty resistant, because I've always found it tough to connect to men, and I've had difficult relationships with men throughout my whole life. Yeah. And I guess that's a programming that's been passed down. through the
let's
generations. It's not.
let's stop for 1 second. I don't want to. You just said something, and I think it's important for the brothers, for me,
Mm,
for everybody. You talked about mm, the challenging relationship you had with the divine feminine frequency, which is I can totally relate to, where you had this, levels and levels and levels of the anger and the rage and all that stuff, right? When that happened to me and I went through that, I then discovered how much of a problem I have, bigger problem with men.
mm,
So you just hit on that a minute ago, and I think that's a real big part of the trip that I don't totally understand, but you made me remember.
mm.
Did that happen to you? We'll go back to the other stuff, but did that happen to you? You just said you've had a lot of problems with men throughout your life. I mean, how
Yeah.
have you approached that? Where are you at with it? Have you balanced that out?
It's coming. Like there's still I kind of hit a point this year where I realized I was ready to allow more love from men into my life.
Yeah.
And I've just had a son, which is no accident,
You're right.
because I think I'm more blocked in with men than I am with women.
Yeah.
So, and interestingly, a lot of stuff has come up because the reason why this calling came to me to work with men was because there's something that I repressed a long time ago that was too painful for me to go into at the time, and I completely separated from my emotions as a child. But I had a brother who killed himself when I was 12. He was 20, and it was kind of, my experience of it was like it wasn't something that happened in my life. It was like I completely pushed that away, and it was like it happened to someone else, and it was like a story for someone else, because looking back, it was too painful. And I actually wrote a post on Facebook about this a couple of weeks ago, and writing it, I just cried my eyes out, and reading it back, I just had so much grief come up that I was just wailing at home, that for all these 20 years, they'd just been sat in me, just completely separate and completely not, I just couldn't be with it. And it sort of came up, and I think that's part of this healing that I'm going through, and having this son. And the thing that's happened with the birth we had with Leo was really tough. We were separated, and I didn't get that bonding time with him. Again, this is no accident. So my experience with Leo at the moment is that I do anything to protect him, and I'm there for him, and I'm trying to give him the best life possible. But that love really hasn't, and connection with my son really hasn't come in yet. And I've got a feeling that as I keep working through it, and I keep showing up to this, to healing myself in this area, that whole thing's going to become a lot. My love for my son will come in, and things will shift with men in my life. And yeah,
That's
sorry.
deep. Well, because there seems to be, wow, this is like, you're bearing your soul here, man. But like, I wonder if, I guess it is, your love for yourself, is gonna mirror out. And what a great valid potential, or it's going to be factual at some point, but potential validation that you can actually look at and go, I can actually measure myself here. You're seeing the perfect orchestration with having a boy, the separation thing, all that stuff. So wow, that's a big deal, and I think that's what it really boils down to. And I know that everybody, man or woman, it's about self-love, and self-respect and self-honor. And I've always said there's two different paths here. There's two different human gender paths for the most part. They don't always have to correlate with the physical gender. We know that.
Yeah.
But the really, I hate to use this word, but stereotypical 3D man experience, masculine experience, there's certain things that we're blind to that we never saw until that feminine energy, by whatever way the universe arranged or we arranged, came in and woke us up. I think that's for the masculine, for the old masculine, that's a very hard thing to accept.
Yeah.
That, in essence, she was right all along.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're
a tough one, man. It's a real difficult. It's like, I
right,
want to be right. I want to be right. It's
right,
amazing the suffering we'll go through in
isn't it?
order to be right. It's insane.
It's a real the egoic blows to the masculine. Now, maybe she took care of it a lot longer ago, but I think the fact that there's women's intuition and they've always been connected. You know what I mean? They've always had that sense. I don't think they had the shit into the ego so much as we did. And I'm not trying to compare or play victim. I'm just saying there's two different places. There's things that we have to offer that she, from our experience in the position we had in this equation, that she can't see, or whatever you want, however you want to put it. Everything equals out.
Yeah.
But and especially when you start to be in a relationship as a man with an awakened, conscious, empowered woman, your ego takes a beating, man. It takes a beating. And at first you're projecting. Then you start to get quiet. Then you're all to yourself. And that's a bloody war. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, for sure. It's something I'm still going through. It's not like I'm not like.
I think we're all, going through it.
Yeah.
I still think we're all beating at the same vibration. It just doesn't look that way. From the the human eyes, so to speak. But it's yeah. So you're really devoted, it sounds like, to these things. Your relationship, your being a parent, being a father, your your intensity of the shadow work directed at your masculine, unknowing, unconsciousness, ignorance, stupidity, whatever you want to call it. And then of course working with men specifically, right? Have you seen, are you seeing men come to you and saying, hey man, I need some help?
More and more. I get more women come to me. But that's the whole thing. That's the healing I'm going through. I can't help men until I've really helped myself in that area. And that's still a work in progress, but I have a really big plan for what I want to bring to the world, around healing the masculine. Because the way I see it is, I've done like, Mankind Project, and I'm aware of all the amazing men's circles and things that are going on. But a lot of the time that there's this there's such a big gap and disparity between the sort of more conscious circles of men doing the work and just your everyday, as you described him, 3D, living in the 3D kind of man.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is that we need to be reaching more of these men, because at the moment they're triggered as fuck by the thought of opening up and expressing or feeling or anything, basically the more sort of woke, conscious man expressing his emotions is a big trigger for the average man. And that's only going to create more separation and more problems. So my thinking is, what's the next step for the average man? And that's really what I'm hoping to instigate. I'm hoping to be that bridge between the idyllic, conscious, open man and just regular, everyday man who's playing out all his old patterns. And so I've come up with Giant Feats, and I want to create media that's going to create conversation for men. Just that first step in the right direction.
Yeah. You know what? I totally agree with that. I feel like I've got the best job in the universe. I'm liking it more and more.
Yeah.
Every day, it's been doing it a long time, but the reason I say that is because I see now that, for whatever, at least is my opinion, that in this realm, in this space and time, whether it be a off-planet, off-universe, dimensional, interdimensional, other timeline, alternate timeline experience, past memory, whatever the case is, there's nothing more powerful than two or more people having a no bullshit conversation. Those are the highest activations, transmissions, downloads, and channelings that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
have instantaneous code availability for anyone who's in the vicinity, whether they're conscious of it or not, or whether they're watching it or not. So I'm with you, brother, man, because I think it's time that men, because for me, the way I see it for myself and what I observe is we don't want to give up all the falsehoods, all the false identities, all the stuff, the dynamic, the energy of what you talked about at the beginning of the show with, being the warrior in the bedroom and all this stuff, right? I think it's time we talk about, take the fucking Viagra off the shelf. It's a fucking physical, it's a program in physical form that infests your body. Let's take out the bullshit and talk about the fact that, you're not Superman. The macho man's got to go. And here's the crazy thing. I've seen glimpses of the power of Todd, multidimensional, whatever, Todd's oneness, Todd's godliness. I'm no different than anyone else, but I've seen now, because for a long time I kind of worried about it, and I had to go through it like, okay, I got to give this up, got to give that up, got to give this up. What's left? There's nothing left. I'm like naked, sitting out here in the woods with all these wild animals around. I don't have a weapon. I don't have nothing. What do I do? What can you do? You just start opening your arms and you surrender and you allow. And this is what I'm getting at. There is for me proof that warrior, that whatever we thought we were and powerful we were and cool we were and clever we were, this is like fucking light years beyond it. Like, we are the divine masculine, and it is an important role, equally important. Yes, she had to go first. Yes, she leads the way.
Yeah.
We got that one, but now it's time for, it's time. And I think it's going to go fast, but it's not going to be an easy process. There's going to be a lot, and I hate to make forecasts like that, but yeah, I think talking about this stuff to the nth degree and cutting the bullshit and the posturing and all that masculine crap is the only way to go. And we can't be like super soft, like, hey, fluffy, love and light. Bullshit. It's time to, bare knuckles and just talk about this stuff,
Yeah.
What do you find is your, and I appreciate your honesty. You've been like incredible, sharing deep stuff. What do you find today, day to day? What is the biggest challenge you have standing in front of you in terms of like removing the illusion, removing the false layers, becoming more balanced, just from your own perspective?
I think my biggest challenge still, what other people think of me, man. Like, that confronts me every moment of every day.
Yeah.
And I know it's just the journey to loving myself more, and it's it's just the resistance in me,
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, you show up every day, you're showing up consistently to this calling that you have, and sort of shining in that and doing an amazing job. And I show up and at times I go so into my head and get so triggered by my own feelings about judgment and not being accepted. There's a lot of pain still in me, and there's a lot of healing still to do around my past and around, and just wanting to be accepted, wanting to fit in, because I've never felt like I belonged. And
that's the kind of thing that we need to talk about. That's the kind of thing we need to talk about is, I probably am lucky because I've never really cared what people thought when I was in my heart, which was no matter what was happening a lot of the time in my life. But there is a part that man, he wants that external gratification, and you're the man, and a lot of, well, we haven't done enough. We haven't admitted to that enough, and it's okay. And what you said about the showing up thing, right? That's another great point, because one of the, from my own journey and my own involvement, there was quite a bit of shadow in all the work, and I guess in all of our journeys, and then you stay with something like what I'm doing, and it starts to get better, but it didn't get better until I consistently showed up. And this is energetic. This is not about Todd. This is just a physical representation, an example. And then I said, I'm going to show up no matter what, but I'm also going to understand that I'm not going to feel good every time I show up. And so something happened, I would come on, I'd say, you know what? I'm not feeling good. You know, people see me go off on this show when I was more shadowed and stuff like that. And I'm just saying, hey, you know what? I don't feel good. You know, I don't feel good. And there's something about that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a big thing for men too, you know, because like you said, with the not being in touch with their emotions, which sounds so fluffy, you know what I mean? This is a deep work, isn't it, for you? I mean,
It
it's
really is.
deep work.
It's not for the faint-hearted, because what it brings up is like, you know, as you integrate these emotions, you literally have to relive some of these experiences in your physical reality, and it's painful as fuck to move through it. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, when you go on this path, it's not easy, but I know at some point on the other side, things will really realign, and I'll be able, and I think, you know, it's really like knowing yourself and being fulfilled in who you are and feeling that love and connection with everything, and being fucking grateful for the experience that you're having. And I think I'm sure that's kind of what I'm hoping to move towards. That's why I'm doing this. But it's not an easy path.
Well, you know, and to your point, you know, it's like if two men come together, the grandstanding, the roosters, you know, bowing up and crowing has got to stop. It's game over, man. I mean, so, and then it's like, you know, just cut the shit. Cut the shit. Don't tell me, you know, all the old stuff. And we all done it. And it's almost like you don't even, you know, you don't even do, you do it and you're not even conscious of it. Like, why am I saying that? Like, why am I doing that? You know, but these things that you talk about, these things that come up when you're doing this work and you're sitting with yourself like that. Have you had like, you know, let's say, you know, really bad traumatic memories come up that were like you had no idea that they even happened? I mean, was it like that?
Things I completely forgotten about. Not that I completely forgotten about. I guess I've had a really interesting relationship with my dad down the years, you know, and I guess a lot of the, you know, he had a really awful relationship with his dad. Like his dad was very abusive and very unloving, and my dad was always very loving of me. But he's, you know, there's a lot of trauma and programming operating through him, and it's been passed down, and it comes from a lot of repression and a lot of unowned anger. And you know, we've had a lot of run-ins down the years, and there's been a lot of traumatic episodes, a lot of, you know, disconnects, a lot of drug taking, a lot of, you know, I don't really feel like I had a role model in the way that maybe a father should show up. I don't know if that's the right thing, way to look at it. You know, there's no shoulds and shouldn't, but he was more like a friend who I'd fall out with regularly, you know, and it's very tied in with my relationship with men. You know, he never felt like he belonged, and he actively pushes men away. This massive competition thing running through me. Yeah. And it's like, I look at a man being happy and being successful, and I'm not happy for him. That's the truth. When I really go into it and deep into it.
Do you realize how, you know what? Do you realize how powerful that statement is? You know, as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So as you have these you know, epiphanies, integrations, understandings, and elevations, expansions, based on the fact that you're just speaking the truth. There's a brother that's watching, and I've watched some of his videos, Lakota Aztec. All respect to you as well. So this isn't, I'm bringing up a point with this comment. He says, you keep returning to having pain within you, and you keep repeating that. No disrespect at all. but I feel within me that you still don't know who you really are yet. I encourage you. Okay. And then he goes on to give some advice. Now, I'm not taking shots at Lakota. I'm not taking shots at you. I'm not taking shots at me. I'm going to just say this is a perfect example because, first of all, none of us know who the fuck we are.
Yeah.
Not one of us on this planet. And if anyone's walking on water, just call up SoulogyOneStudios and we'll have you on the show tomorrow. All right. Number two, and I'm not saying that wasn't for you, Lakota. I'm just saying this is where we haven't quite got the Rubik's Cube lined up, right? Two, so we don't know who we are. None of us do. And two, what's wrong with pain? What's wrong with pain? One of the problems that men have is they're unwilling to admit that they're in fucking pain or they're suffering about something.
I still have a lot of pain. I'd happily sit here and own that. And I wouldn't say, I've been on a journey, and of course, I'm still learning about myself, man. I'm like an infant in terms of my growth. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I was to stand here and say, my life is a bed of roses and I wake every day pleased to be alive, because I don't. I've had many experiences in the last year where I felt like I just wanted to turn life off. I do have a lot of pain. And maybe that means I don't know who I am, but I'm learning, and it's just a journey. No one, like you said, no one's walking water.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between pain that debilitates you and pain that transforms you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And this is what I'm getting at. This is why I love the comment that he made, because it's a perfect example, and not just his comment, but all three of us, just consider it a triad of what resistance there is that we don't see, what judgments we make that we don't see, what we're up against in terms of what a man was and what a man isn't. And then what's left. This is why I say we don't know who we are, because all my manhood was taken away. And in a different type of connotation, I hit a 0 point. That 0 point was that I was buck naked to the soul, standing in the middle of the universe, but still living this life in the human realm as Todd. Now, what do I do? How do I bring all this magic in, all this stuff that we're all pulling in, and put it into my experience as a man and expand the divine masculine frequency? And I think it has to do, I think the key, maybe the last leg of it is making peace mano y mano with men, with coming to the table as men and emotional and honest and cut the bullshit. We don't know what we're doing. We're building a new template and a new blueprint. We're writing a new good book. There is no answer, so to speak. The answer is to live and expand and to
allow, man. I think it's only the resistance, and I think maybe that's what he's getting at. I'm still living in a lot of resistance to what is, and I think maybe possibly that's where your friend is coming from, because there is, pain's only created by what we resist. But
well, that's the thing. We have so much resistance. We're like you said about, you don't feel good for this guy that went and achieved this. You know what? You're not a man if you haven't had that feeling. Now, I'm going to say that. If you can't admit that, then you're full of crap. I'm going to mention something, which I was talking to you about. What processes do you use? And you described it beautifully, very organic too. I love that. Something like I can really relate to that because everybody's different.
Yeah.
My wife uses a very powerful invocation, which I don't know by heart, and I'm not going to try right now, but it's a very powerful thing she downloaded over 2-3 years, and basically, what it allowed me to do was to fast track all this bullshit that 90% of it I didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
And when I first met her, she, we've talked about this a lot. We were at a relative's house, and I worked for 5 weeks, after a few days of resistance, that doing this invocation and making these lists, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because of how open you've been, and maybe it's something, you know, either consciously, physically, non-physically, that maybe code is exchanged and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you an example, and it was a real eye opener for me. She said, make a list of all your failures. And I made a list of about 20. I went in and showed them to her, and she said, no, that's not enough. Right. That's not it. So I went deeper, and it was about 138 on that list when I got done. And I invocated every single one of them. Right. And as a man, make a list of your failures. And, you know, just you and the universe talking, you make a list of your failures, and you're talking family, you're talking work, you're talking, you know, the partying, you know, the whatever you want to call it, the sexual intimacy, the this, the that, I mean, it is, as a son, as a brother, you know, as a father, I mean, as a, you know what I mean? And it cleared, it changed my life. And it introduced me to the feminine intelligence of, we don't have to do it so hard, because a man does it hard.
Yeah.
He does. I had a psychic I met when I first got started, said, you swam like a salmon up the river and up the waterfall as hard as you could. And I did. I walked the streets for 2 years, and I didn't have to do that. But that was perfect at the time. All I'm trying to say is, I think energy supports fast tracked, you know, you know, whatever you call it, integration or expansion, balance. Yeah. Yeah, we'd support you if you, if you've got any ideas and you want to have a little round table. I mean, I think that's another part of the men's. You know, you have your son to be a great barometer for where you're at. You know, with what you described so bravely a while ago. But another thing is our creativity. So if we can come together without the old masculine in the house of controlling and strategizing and you know, all that stuff, and just let go like they do and be creative and operate in the gray area instead of black and white, who knows what we could come up with.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm game for that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I don't like this new camera. I keep looking at and I look like an old man. I think I've aged about 10 years.
Just changing the camera.
It's okay. I'm less shadow. And that's another thing, you know, to say stuff like that, you know, I mean, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but I don't care anymore. I am who I am. And that's not a finished product. I should say, I'm okay with who I am. I know I'm going to get better. I'm tired. I feel like shit. I got bags under my eyes. I met a friend today. I mean, this is it. This is life. This is life. Life is all of it, you know?
Right now.
Can't resist any of it.
Yeah, well, it's just resistance. I mean, like you're saying about how you look, I resisted years. I shaved my head a few months ago, but it was like the best thing I ever did. And I was resisting losing my hair for years and years and years and trying to, but every time I looked in the mirror, it was just like looking at myself and just thinking, I hate myself, I'm a piece of shit. And then as soon as I released that and shaved my head, I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And now I don't worry about it anymore. It's amazing.
That's so weird, because I went to run up to the store before the show. I don't know why you're saying this to me, because I'm not doing it. But I was driving up to it was the energy of it. I was thinking, you know what? I feel different. Today's 12/3, by the way. Today's 12/3. Happy birthday, Shanine.
Oh, happy birthday, Shanine.
Yeah, and it's a powerful day, 12/3. It's a 333.
It is a 333.
It's a 333, and there's 3 new comments. So we're on a roll here, and it's
and it's a 3-year as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's 210 in New York, which is a 3. But anyway, I was driving, and I thought, man, and I thought, what could I do? What could I do to like signify that? And I thought I'd shave my head. And then I saw myself walking back into the house and putting Morgan in the shock. And I was like playing it out in my head. It like the shock went on for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I wouldn't do it, but
You
I
got
can,
a beautiful head of hair.
yeah, I can understand though. I can understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, I think like sometimes losing your hair is like a physical representation of that sort of unworthiness, because you have to look at it every day, and it's like a reminder. It's kind of like set there to trigger you off, because like we're creating everything, right? So it's like a physical representation of a belief that you have about yourself.
exactly. Yeah.
There to trigger you. And as soon as you release that, and then I was able to shave my head, it's like I no longer have to keep beating myself up for something that I perceive about myself. And it's like it was a massive release doing that. I'm sure, I'm sure so many men go through that and never speak about it.
Yeah.
It's a massive pain that a lot of men experience.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that old thing where people say, we're running over just a little bit.
That's okay.
We'll sew it up in a minute, but there's that old thing where they say, take your clothes off, stand in front of a full-length mirror, and tell yourself you're beautiful. I'm like, what a crock of shit. I don't have to do that. All I got to do is, you don't have to go to that degree. But no, I'm making a joke. But yeah, I think it would be, and it was really on this show that I'm realizing that a fast track type of process or modality, I think would be highly beneficial to men. It's very confronting. And if you have a support system like I did, which in theory, as we creatively come together here, we could actually have a support system of men. No bullshit. I'm not joining the group just to say I'm in the group or making a group. It's all inclusive. Everybody's invited. If you want to come, and the only thing is leave your ego at the door, because we're not here to deal with that. We're here to deal with the wounded child and all that stuff. But that a fast track, because men do it hard.
Yeah.
And if you look at the energetic copies within their life, look at the things they do. They do it hard. They take the long way. It's like men asking for directions. They say, I don't know about your country, but they say in the US that men never want to pull over and ask for directions.
Yeah, that's a thing here too.
I mean, right? Think about that. Think about the energetic copy that is, the template that is. So he would rather go on a wild goose chase and hold his pride and keep his manhood intact when actually his penis is shrinking and his self-esteem is taking a beating, when he could just get out of the car, ask somebody, how the hell do I get there? And start healing.
Yeah, true. It is mad.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with. This is like the reality that we're confronted with, and I think it's always a reflection of what's going on within. And the more we heal ourselves in this level, the more we can be of service and kind of work with other men to help shift this. So
yeah, right on, man. So is there anything that you want to share, or anything you want to talk about with what you're doing, or before
man, I think I mean, how much time do we have?
We got a few minutes. I mean, I have another show for 45 minutes. I like to take a little break, but I usually go an hour 15 minutes, but we're cool. You want to talk about something?
Yeah, I mean, basically the idea that I've got, because I really want to make a big impact, and I was trying to think about the biggest impact that I could possibly have, and I decided that I'm going to create a TV show, and I've got a name for it. It's called The True Man Show.
The True Man Show.
Yeah. And basically, I'm gonna do it in the UK. I've got an idea for the pilot already. I'm gonna go into, the idea is I'm gonna go into places where communities of men already exist, just like normal everyday men, and I'm gonna go in, like, for example, like I'm gonna go into a football where you'd say soccer, like grassroots soccer club, football club, and I'm gonna take an ex-England international in there who's very open about expressing, themselves and their life and what's going on for them. And it's going to be kind of a talk show, but we're going to do some activities, and I'm going to film the men and how they interact and how they share and how they open up and how they support each other and how they create community. And I'm going to interview this like ex-England player. And then I'm going to create a conversation in the room where, once we've shared and been really vulnerable, we open the conversation and pass the mic around to all the sort of just normal men who were there and get them to start to express. So
put them on the spot. Do it. Put them on the spot. Do it live.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, and we're going to film it live and then turn it into a TV show.
Yeah,
and
I think that's huge. Is the live part of it. You know.
Yeah.
You know, if they're doing it, I'm not talking about your deal, but I'm talking about even like what I do, because I've done well over 3,000 productions. You know, but I find that the live, there's something about live.
Yeah,
it makes you walk the plank, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect to turn up on the show and the first thing we talk about is erections. And it took me a while to calibrate. I was like expecting normal questions like, where are you from? How old are you?
Yeah, wait till we get you and your wife on. You said something though that yeah, I can see that. You know, would be good like a locker room at a fitness club.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be all that kind of thing. We're going to capture all that, but I want to get it really mainstream, because I think, you know, if we continue to try and point everything at the sort of people who are already awake, then we don't actually reach any of the people who need us, and that they're the people that are still living their lives through all this pain and programming and not seeing themselves in any way. And a first step to that is just to get people to start talking and sharing and getting men to connect on a different level to what they already are.
Yeah, and not the fluffy love and light shit.
No, fuck that.
Yeah, we're all one, so you have to love each other. Hey, that's fine, but why were you an asshole to me? Why were you an asshole to me? Why did you insult me? It's okay. It's okay to admit it. And it's also okay to talk about it. And it's also okay to talk about it and not bow up and start scrapping like dogs, you know. It's okay. This is yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. You know, I love what you yes, and so it is. Now let it go, right? That's what my wife tells me. I'll say, and she'll say, now let it go. And that's how it works. But I love what you said too, because of something that we're doing and we've been focused on doing for a long time, about getting to an audience beyond those who are here. Let's put it that way. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because this is part of this portal. It's part of this vortex. It's part of this platform, like in this case with Soulogy. But how do we get, so expanding awareness, you know, we're moving into the very final stages, finally, thank you, of launching Soulogy Network.tv, Soulogy.tv, whatever, where it's multiple channels available on handhelds, where people can come and be heard, or come and express and have ideas like this. And I know you're talking TV, but you know what? Whatever it takes, I think we have to keep doing this until we become the mainstream. We have to make so much noise, create so much energy, because we know we're getting help from our teams, the you, me, we, and it. And it's time, man. It's time. So I think this is a big part of it. Nothing's going to happen until the men come on board, and that's not a slight against anyone. I'm talking energy, because I've seen that same masculine, or I would use the word patriarch, influence, or not influence, but the consequences of it in women's behavior too, especially as these energies go, like through 2019, you see the women in masculine acting out, controlling, projecting, you know. So it's all of us. It's a team effort, and I think to expand awareness, become more mainstream with this type of bold idea like you have is absolutely essential and should be supported. And we'd be glad to support it if we could and somehow do it.
Well, we'll talk. I'm sure this is the beginning, right?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. So I just want to say thank you for a great early show, and thank you for your brutal honesty and your intimate revelations and sharing of your experiences. It takes a lot of balls to do that. You know, it takes a lot of balls. It takes a man in the making to do that. And I think you're going to have that as people watch this episode. I think, it'll touch a few men, and that's how that energy works. They take it on, they now carry it, and whether they open their mouth or not, it's expanded. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Todd. And big respect, big love, my friend, for everything you're doing.
Big love to you, and best to you and your family. And we'll be seeing you and your wife very soon, I have a feeling. So,
yeah, I look forward to it.
I'm not even asking if you're interested, because we don't have to do that anymore. We're all telepathic. But yeah, I don't mean to be presumptuous, but
amazing.
Yeah. So to many future collaborations.
Excellent. Yeah. Chin. All right. Take care, man. All the best.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.